Okay, so this was a clipping mask, as you remember. And let me just pull this up. Let's scale this. Shift key, always remember that shift key. Otherwise, you'll end up distorting it. Any questions in Illustrator why we are in here?
Yes, is there like a video on how to do that? Hopefully have.
I think there is a video that I did, but this is simply a clipping mask.
Okay.
Does anybody know how to do a clipping mask? Anyone?
Can you go over it again?
Sure. Yep. Okay. First thing, let's just show you, like you see, this is empty inside, right? And I want it to have a filling. So you can come over here to live bucket. Remember our live bucket? And we can kind of fill this. Let's get this to see if it will fill. And see here. Yeah. I want to get this to be filled inside. Let's see if I can do this. It's a compound path. You see, if you look at what we have here, it's a compound path. And let's see if I can get the live paint bucket to activate it. Points are everywhere. And remember, it's always what your swatch is. There we go. And then what you want to do is come up here to Object, Live Paint, Expand. And so then what I have is the ability to, it was filled, now it's filled, but I could ungroup it. Remember, always ungrouping and grouping. You know, I can pull it out, right? And I can make it be a different color. So this is why we love Illustrator, is that we can, you know, do these kind of things. And what I want to do is just make it black. Okay. And again, zooming in, whoops. And so when you know how to do these things, it's critical in a design studio. That's all I have to say. I did mention to you that my student is going to be speaking April 18th on a Monday. He's going to Zoom with us Monday at 7 o'clock. So I am going to make that required for you to attend, because he's going to talk about apparel design for North Face. And first he was with Nike, and I'm going to ask him questions about Nike and how did he get his job with Nike and so forth. And so it's important that you want to be there, simply because he loves to look at students' work. So I appreciate that he likes to do that. Does anybody have a problem for being there on a Monday, the 18th, April 18th, at 7 o'clock at night on Zoom? Well, actually, no, you'll be watching the Twitch channel. He's Zooming with me, and you'll be watching Twitch. Does anyone have a conflict?
No, I'll be there.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Are we all good?
I'll be
Thumbs up?
here too. But are you gonna send us a link?
Yes, I will send you the link. Lonnie's good. Kimberly, are you good for that Monday, the 18th at 7?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I will give you the link. Absolutely. I'll probably give that to you for next week, but just put that on your calendar. And you can invite as many people as you want. Anyone else that's a fashion designer can, you know, it's a Twitch channel. So I have a live Twitch channel that I'm interviewing professionals, and I also interview alumni. Alumni, yeah. Okay, so let me just get this grouped again. And let's do the clipping mask. Up. Get this grouped. So grouping is very important to stay organized. Oops, I didn't get all of it, as you can see. And that's why you have this tool, the lasso. The lasso lets you, and you can deselect, like right now, I don't want this over here. So you can deselect that. And let's get this grouped. So you can move it around. So grouping is very, very important to do. And then don't forget your object, send to the back. So that is what I am trying to do here. Or maybe the other way. Okay, so let's do the clipping mask. So the important thing, I'll make another artboard. And remember, your artboards can be exported like this as screens. But do remember, it lowers the resolution. The terminology screens is implying 72 DPI, not the 300 DPI, which may be what you have set up to be, which you should have. So if you want it to be 300 DPI, you must export like this, export as, and then use artboards down here to get all of them, and then make it a JPEG, and that will be high resolution. When we go to Photoshop, you can make it a PSD, as you can see here. So that is the most important thing about knowing and understanding software is what can you import and what can you export. And that is where you're always in the midst, like we were talking about CAD last week. We're talking about how you can go back and forth between CAD and Illustrator all the time because they have importable and exportable formats that they accept. And so that's why Photoshop is so valuable. Illustrator, we're talking Illustrator with CAD. I don't think you can bring a JPEG into CAD. Maybe today you can, but it's really about vectors. All right, so basically what you're doing is you're placing a photograph. Let me just get something. So here is a photograph. And say I just want this area. Now this would be very helpful for your collage. So let me just make something that I want as a shape. And it doesn't matter what the color is. And like for instance, I really should make this be on a grid. So let's show the grid. And the hard part about the grid is that you don't really see it. You can't see it with this photograph, right? So then what you do is you turn it off and then fix it. One, two, 1, 2. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that's why grids and guides and all that, always work with your rulers on. Always be sure that's on so you can bring it down. Okay, now we'll come back to here. Now the important aspect is that, and this is critical to, which is why this class is even in your program. It's really important to understand digital media formats. So I just brought in a photograph that is a certain resolution. Could be a photograph of your models, Could be photographs of your designs, whatever it may be. You cannot enlarge this photograph in Illustrator, otherwise it gets pixelated. So it's important to remember that. So that aspect, I have to really shrink this because my photograph, I cannot scale it up, otherwise it's going to get pixelated. So that's number one to remember on that. Same thing in Photoshop. For web, you can kind of get away with it, but if it's print, forget it. You can't do it at all. But for web, what you see is what you get. And so if it looks okay at 100%, it's good. So now to do the clipping mask. So the important, and this is masking. This is how you do all those special effects in that video. It's the same procedure as what we're going to do. So you have to be sure that you're in the same layer. This is one layer, and these are what we call paths. And so you want to be sure that your mask, which is this triangle here, is on along with the photograph. They must be on. Computers can't read your mind. Everything is based upon your selection. So now I have both of them turned on, and then you just simply come up here to Object, Clipping Mask, and now you can actually move this around by coming up here to Clipping Mask, Edit Contents. So you can kind of move things if you want it to be, if you didn't get it perfect. And there you have your mask. And then of course, now it's grouped together. So you can, move this around and place this in any way. So that was the clipping mask. Any questions on the clipping mask? So that is how you can get your images to come over to Photoshop. And that's what I'm going to show you now. Okay? But any other questions as I'm in Illustrator? So I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop the share because I'm sorry. Go back. I have to export this. So let's export these two things. And then I'll show you a little bit of the timeline. And if anybody has questions on the Puppet Warp as well.
Can you do that one more time? You said objects?
You mean for the clipping mask?
Yeah.
Let's go back. So you want to be sure over here, Crystal, you want to be sure that you have your mask and you have your photograph in the same layer. And that you have them both turned on, Shift key. Shift key lets you do multiple selections. And these blue boxes show you that you have these selected. Then you come up here to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And if you wanted to move it around, you go Object, Mask, Edit, Contents. And then you can get it to move around.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a really important tool, like Live Paint, which is great. Okay, and let's put a stroke on this. And remember, your stroke is a window. And let me make sure I have it. Come on, let's do the stroke. See how that little bugginess? I call Illustrator a sticky program, meaning that sometimes when I select it, it's not selected and I have to deselect. So that's why deselection is actually so important in programs like this. Okay, so now we have them. Let me get this over here. So what we want to do is we want to, we'll save this as an AI. This should be an AI. And here is my illustrations, clipping mask. And always remember your file naming protocol is to always remember the higher number of the file name should be your last edit. That way you know what's the most important document is the higher number. So now on here, if you notice, let's take a look at our layers. So number one, let's close these things out. That's one. We don't need this. So I'm going to delete that. Delete that. And don't even know where that is. Let's see. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I know everything about what's in here. So that's why I'm making a point to zoom out. And you can do that as such. There you go. You see there's a little itsy bitsy thing down there. And you can highlight it and just simply delete. So that's not important. This is important. And then, of course, the clipping mask. Now, in this reference, you notice that this is a layer. And what I want to do is I need to make all of these layers. And the question would be why? Because when I go to this, File, Export As, and I want a PSD, it's going to ask me, write layers, layers. And these are paths. So you can convert your paths into layers by coming over here and release to layers. Now they are all layers, as you can see. And that is what you must do when you bring it into Photoshop, is you want to do the sequence, release to layers. So let's see how this works. So I'm saving it again as the AI, and then I'm exporting it as, and let's bring this up so you can see this. I'm bringing it up, I'm over here, use the artboards, all, say okay, export. CMYK is fine. You can actually make it to RGB. Let's do that. You see the RGB doesn't give it to you. So keep it CMYK. Write the layers. Keep it high. You can always go down. You can't go down up. If you had it 72 and you wanted to make it big, you can't do that. But 300, you can always bring it down. Okay, so this is one of the things that we did for the puppet warp. This was what we did last week. This is and what I'm going to show you on how to do the video. So this is in Photoshop. And you see, all of these took the silhouettes of the Beatles and masked the images here, and then brought them in, and then you simply, and the shadows were these four silhouettes askewed, laid down with a transparency. So you can see here, this transparency is going to have a, let me turn out the light, is going to have a transparency on here. And it's soft light, it's actually a mode. And so you can layer the transparency like this. And so you have transparency right on the layer in Photoshop. So we'll come back to that. So on here, if we were doing the video, you would start out with new. And the video size that you want it to be, pretty much I use the YouTube traditional one. And so this is the setup. And always, always, always choose the transparency so you can see your layers. So that's pretty high definition. And there we have our video ready to bring in our layers. So let's do that. Let's place embedded. And let's bring this up. See, it gave me two, because there was two artboards. And it only lets you do it one at a time. So let's do one. There is one, and you see it's transparent, right? But notice it didn't bring in the layers. So if we did File Open, remember that was a place. Let's do a File Open. Now we have our layers. So it's important to remember that if you want your layers, you can bring them in as I'm doing here. So you can bring this down, and you see I can bring in the layers if I want to have the background, which is what we have here. All of these are a little bit of the background in here. This one, and there's the black. So if I wanted the black, I could bring this in. And see, it's 300 dpi. So that's one thing, but the resolution is always good. So there's different ways you can begin to, you can zoom out of here, of course, just like this, and do what we call edit, free transform, always Control T. Just like in Illustrator, when you want to scale something, it's the keystroke of E. When you want to scale something in Photoshop, it is always Control T. And you don't need the Shift key. Now they changed that up in the last two versions, and it really messes me up. I have to remember not to do the Control T. So when you see how I'm scaling it down, when you scale something down, it needs either a check up here or just double click. When in doubt, always double click. You'd be surprised all the things that happen. So if you don't want it to be as large as I did, you can scale it down to 72 dpi and it will come in much smaller. See, I already just did the Shift key on that. But the important part is that you see I have the two of them. So if I wanted this to fade in, I could fade this in. So it depends on how you bring this in. One way or the other, you can just bring it in as a flattened layer, which is often the easiest thing to do. You just have to prepare your Illustrator files and say, okay, this is exactly what I want as far as the image, and then it will come in just the way you see it in Illustrator and be the one layer that you want it to be. So now I have this. And so I can bring in that other one. We'll save this, haven't saved it yet. Make sure always where you know where you are. Okay, so now again, I will bring this in to place embedded. And that's the second one. And there is it there. Now again, double click it when it comes in, and then you can begin to see it. So you see 100%. So that's the size of 100%. So this gets to be a little pixelated, as you can see. This is pretty good on the right here. And so you can do a couple of things that you can be able to. So on these two, you can link them together. You see how they're separate? You can highlight the layers and just link them up here. And now you're able to move it around. And again, Control T if you want to make it large. And you notice it's large because that's the photograph size of the original crop. So now scaling it big, I'm at risk, but so far it looks okay because it's web, but it would not be okay for print. So now again, remember, once you start learning one Adobe program, they all are intuitively very similar. So if I want a background, you come down here and you make a layer. And you can move it down, and then you can take your tool and the bucket. So I will choose, I'll use black. And now you see I have it as a black background. Now on this right here, you see how I have these little icons? So that keeps it from being editable. To make it editable, meaning if I want to make changes in these layers, you want to come up here and simply say rasterize all layers. So now that icon goes away and I can manipulate what I want. So a couple of very nice tools that are simple and easy. Like if I don't want this white around the edges, right? Then I can use what we call the magic eraser. Now on the magic eraser, be sure that you have 32 up here. By default, if you haven't touched it, it will say 32, but I've touched it. So it's leaving it from the last one I have. And so you can bring this in and you see it cleans up the edges, but it took away my head. So Control Z, go back and now lower that. So I'm going to go to 20. See, it's retaining it. I'll go down to 10 now because there's a lot of white that is in here. And see, now it gets to be sticky because of this white is too close on there. And you kind of see a little bit of the pixelization from what I have, because that was from the original photograph on there. So there's lots of tools for cleanup that I can help you with. So the important thing is that you can eliminate quite a bit of things. And as you can see here, you can come up here to this tool, which is called the Quick Selection. It's under the tool right here. And if I click this, it will begin to snap into, let me zoom out so I can see everything. There we go. The magic wand is one that you can add to it. So there you see, we call this the marching ants. So you see how the marching ants are here, and you can take the quick selection and you can come up here and say minus or add. So you can say minus and it will push back the marching ants. See how it's pushing back? So now I am getting the head. And so now I can go down and make sure I have everything. Looks like it falls off about here. Oh no, it's good. Yeah, up right here. So then here I can say, nope, don't grab that. I don't want you to grab that. So you see, I'm cleaning up so it's not eating into the picture. So again, the steps were use a magic wand first, then clean up the deterioration with a quick select. And that's like if you lose too much, it's plus or minus. Plus or minus. So you can come in here and just click, and it knows what you want because it's snapping to the contrast. So it's really not complicated. There you see I haven't need to do it over here. And ask me any questions if you have. And then you come back to fit on screen, and now you can hit delete. And now I have the head. So that's why that is such an invaluable tool. So everything about Photoshop are those marching ants. So now I can just come back here with the traditional eraser. Remember the brackets near the P, which is the same as in, and I don't want soft edge, I want hard edge. And I want 100%, 100% to clean up these lines as such. And so now you have two objects, and let's create a different background color. Let's choose a dark gray, which is easier. Okay, so that I have the ability to do that. Okay, so now there's a couple of things to show you that is what we call right down here. You notice there is a timeline for video and a timeline for animated GIFs. So animated GIFs are really fun. And let me show you how to create an animated GIF very simply. So, and then also, you can also do it as a video. So in other words, animated GIFs are frame by frame animation. And a video can be exported as an animated GIF. So let's do first the frame by frame animation. So you basically set that up and then you click it. And then let me bring this up so you can see it. And so it gives the ability so that if we create something, let's create some type. And turn this on so I can see it. Come up here to your type. Get it to be white. And you can, you do have lots of choices to do type in. So you can use type. And don't forget, you can do this also in Illustrator. You can bring your type in if you don't want to do it in, Illustrator. So I just pulled up this character window, and most windows are always under window, and it is under character styles right here. And so you can open this up to have more space so that you can, and you can go pretty far. And you can also go very large. And you can change it to whatever size you want it to be. And that's too big. Let's get this down to 150.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching everything you're doing, but I'm just curious, when will this video will be upload?
Let's see, what's today's Tuesday?
Yeah.
It'll render tonight. I'll put it up tomorrow. But Crystal, work on your collage. Don't,
Okay.
this is really about video.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting into this. I'm just showing you how to bring images from Illustrator into video. But yes, this will be up. It should definitely be up by Thursday. But, work on your collage as far as Illustrator is concerned. This is just showing you how, I'm going to show you how easy it is to do a timeline in Photoshop. So I just created this word fashion, and we can make an animated GIF on this. And that's what I'm going to show you on how to do. So, but yeah, it will definitely be up on Thursday. So now on here, you can, you see this is an editable file because it's linked to the typefaces. So what you want to do is rasterize it. Now, if I wanted to make another word, I would definitely duplicate it. So you can right click and duplicate a layer and turn it off so that you have it, because on this one, I'm going to rasterize it. So let's rasterize it. Under layers, rasterize. And now it is a rasterized layer. And if I duplicate this and move this, whoops, let's lock this guy, the background. If I do these two, right, you see how it's changed? If you highlight this and then highlight this and then put a tween, you see, it moves. Now the video can do the same thing on that. And then this becomes an animated GIF. So that's one way. Now, animated GIFs are really what we call frame-by-frame animation. And so we could do the same thing in video. So let's do that. So I'm going to eliminate all of these. Okay. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to convert it. Now it is video. So video is is easier than the animated GIFs. And I'll show you how. People would never think that, but it actually is. So this is the video timeline. And so to make this be bigger, you have the ability to make it smaller or bigger right here. So when I am dragging this, that is 6 seconds right now. So if I hit play, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, it plays slower than it actually is. And so I'm going to render it for you when we go on our break. And when I promise you we'll go on our break at 3:30. So you can pull this out to you reach 15 seconds or 30 seconds, whichever one you want. It depends. And so now I'm going to show you how we can be able to use. So I've turned this off so we don't see that one. But we do have this, and we do have this. So the way this is you have to remember what you see is what you get. This blue marker that goes back and forth, that is showing you time. So in the beginning, you see this, but if I didn't want to see that, and I didn't want to see this, I can pull it out. So now you see you don't see it. And on this one, there is the fashion. And so let me raise this up, scrub this so I can be sure. Let's zoom out so we can see this. You can attach this to the page. Whoops, be careful. And now it's on the bottom, so you can pull it up, hover over the cursor, and pull it down. So now it's attached to the Photoshop file. And of course, as you can see, you don't need your layers right now. So I'm just going to get this to be centered. Whoops. I have these two selected. I don't want that. And maybe I have them linked. Oh, I have them selected here. So you see how I had it selected, so I'm going to unselect it. That's why deselect is so important. Go back to only what you want. And so what these bars are that automatically happens when you say video is these are what we call title safety. So if you were doing a broadcast commercial, these are the guidelines to be sure any important information, be sure you have it within this, but you can also have it so that, that you're getting too close to the edge. So even mobile phones or something can crop it out. Okay, so now you see I have, and I can pull this out. It's very intuitive. You roll over and you see the cursors and you can make everything be longer. So the best thing is to pull out the last color layer to be what you want it to be and then bring it in. Okay, so now on here, I can start with it black and then fade in. Don't have it turned on. And then fade it in, which is here. Okay, so now let me show you how easy it is. So if we just watch this, it looks like this. Now, of course, we have music and it feels long, so we'll videotape it, and there, that would be it. So now that's what we call a rough cut, no transitions. Now, when you putting transitions on, you can do things like this. Right over here, you click this and you drag and drop it. And you can actually stretch this out if you want it to be a long fade. And then you can drag and drop it as well to fade this and to fade that, and then to fade this. Now watch it. Here comes fashion. Here comes that. Here comes the black. And then here comes the image. Much slower, right? So you just have to remember that it's always going to be slower in Photoshop. That's number one. And the way you can tell how long you want your project to be is to simply see, you see here, it says 6 seconds. So when you begin to build, you bring it out all the way out to 15 or 30 seconds. 28, and then you can make this smaller as so, and you get the back, there's 30 seconds right there. And don't forget, you want to have credits as well. And then you can, you can bring, now you begin to bring in your layers for special effects. So let me explain to you on here. So you see, you can pull these all out. You hover over this and you can pull each of these out. This one is turned off, so I'll use it for something else. So let me explain to you on how to do the keyframing on here, and we'll come back to this. So you see opacity, style, and position. So you bring back your marker, your time, this is your time frame, you bring it back. And like I'm going to take away the transitions, so just so I can see it. So you don't really put the fades in and the fades out until the very end, because you want to be sure to get all your keyframing done first. So here's the position. And so I'm going to lock the position, and I simply click it and it makes a keyframe. Then I advance the timeline. And now what I can do is I can take this and I can move it down. And Shift key keeps it aligned. And now when you play it back, simply as that. So that's a long time, 6 seconds, but that's how it can go through. So right away, that is how you make a keyframe. Now you can move these keyframes if you want to go faster, which it certainly can. You can move that keyframe. And if you don't want that keyframe, you can just simply delete it. That easy. Now on style are glows. So if I'm going to put a glow onto this. So let's do that first. I'm going to double click, highlight the layer, come up here to layer styles. That's where the style comes from. I want to say outer glow. And I bring it up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a keyframe. I want the color to be red so you can see it. I want to really get the glow so I can see it like that. So now we're doing some neon stuff. So there we have it. So that's what I want to happen as it is what it's doing. We'll start out with that and then we'll have it fade. So I'll say okay. Now if I wanted it to let's double click this again. Let's get this outer glow. Where are your outer glow? Right here. Let's bring the opacity down to 0 so you don't see it. We don't see our glow. So I'm going to say okay. And down here, I'm going to hit style. That just locked the keyframe. So I'm going to advance it to about here. And then I'm going to come back here, double click, and back to outer glow. And now I'm going to bring it as so. And so then when you see it, it turns on. And so I'll jump to this keyframe here for the position, and I don't want it to be down there. Whoops. I got the two of them. Let's just get one. Shift key, don't forget, keeps it there. And so then go back and then this comes in. And we'll hold. So that's a little bit of, and you can stop it. Spacebar stops. Those are just some of the little things to be bringing in into your timeline. So what you do is you tend to build all of your assets. So you'll hear that word a lot in studios. Assets are all the pictorial elements that go into a deliverable. Whether it be music. So again, as you can see, let me show you here. You can add music right here, audio track. So you can add music. And then if you make a blank layer here, let's say I go up here, add another layer, and it's blank, that layer can be video. You can actually add video into here. Now, if your video is too long, then I'll show you how to edit it in another program to make it short so that you're bringing in a little clip. But you probably all know how to do that with some online video editing programs. Well, Premiere, you do have access to Premiere. So, and that's how you can bring your video in. Any of the videos that you have that you take with your phone, just make them short. Don't make them long, make them very short. And this way you can bring multiple ones into it.